If you're not happy in the world, people treat you like you're broken. But what if the happiest people are just the most delusional? What if a realistic or even pessimistic view gives you an advantage? In True Detective, Rust is a gritty cop and the walking embodiment of philosophical pessimism. He believes human consciousness is a tragic misstep in evolution. To his partner Marty, Rust is just always saying weird stuff. But psychologically, Rust's view gives him a terrifying advantage and an unpleasant outcome. You can function at an elite level, see patterns no one else sees, and still end up believing that nothing matters. Today, we analyze the psychology of the high-functioning pessimist, how staring into the abyss destroys your relationships but grants you the superpower to understand the monsters living within it.
If I was you, people around here don't think that way. I don't think that way.
We have to start with the contrast to better understand how far removed Rust is from social norms. Rust is partnered with Marty. Marty is a normal guy. He has the wife, the kids, the job. He's a man that buys into the American dream. But look closer. Marty's life is a mess of hypocrisy. He cheats on his wife while preaching family values. He drinks to numb himself. He lives in what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, lying to himself to maintain his self-image. It would be reductive to call Marty's situation messy or messed up. It's more like he's a partially complete puzzle pretending it's finished. Rust, on the other hand, has no dissonance at all. He sees it all very clearly and cuts right through it. Rust isn't immune to the common and prevailing cognitive dissonance that is so present all around him. He would actually call himself a realist, but that won't make sense to most of his audience, so to be accurate and credible, he labels himself a pessimist. He sees that everyone is trapped in a dream that they're desperately trying to believe in. This is why Rust is so abrasive. Pessimism makes you allergic to small talk. If you've ever felt like you can't stand shallow conversations, you've touched a bit of what Rust lives in all the time. His version destroys his ability to form normal relationships because relationships require this shared illusion, especially in work, dating, and even friendships. You have to agree on a story. Every workplace, every relationship runs on these shared stories. If you can't or won't play along, you get labeled difficult, intense, or broken. We agree to pretend things are okay so we can get along. Rust refuses, or rather he can't pretend. If he tried, it would be closer to acting a part he neither believes in or cares about. Contrast this with his time spent undercover, where his purpose to act like a criminal has value. It will lead to the arrest and/or end of terrible men. This is where his view of life becomes useful, because where he can't relate to everyday people, he can relate to the monsters using something called dark empathy.
Sure, man, I need you to talk to me about some things.
Because Rust has no optimism bias, he is not shocked by evil. He sees, in his mind, the world as it is. Normal people like Marty have a hard time looking at a criminal's reasoning and can't make any connection to how another person could take that action or let alone think it's a good idea. Rust looks at a criminal and thinks, of course a human did that. They were motivated by this impulse or wanted that result. Dark empathy allows him to connect with the worst of humanity in a way Marty never can. Take the interrogation of a woman who didn't take very good care of her own children. Marty only has judgment for this woman, which inhibits his ability to connect with her. This is very unhelpful when what's needed here is a confession. Rust, though, he sits close to her. After knowing what she did, this would be hard for most people. He speaks softly. He understands and relates to her motivations. You could say this is an instance where Russ is staring into the abyss, getting into the mind of someone who could do what she did. He just sits with her, not in judgment, but in understanding. He finds a connection and a comfort and gets the confession. There is no intimidation here, no threats, just empathy, understanding, and validation. He basically says, I know the world is heavy. I know you were just trying to set them free. Russ shows you that the real power is getting a monster to trust you enough to damn themselves. He does something similar when he goes undercover with the biker gang. He blends in seamlessly with the drug dealers and murderers, people who inflict significant suffering. The difference between the woman and the gang is that being undercover isn't just in a moment. He is actively living a lifestyle as a gang member. The risk with undercover activities is that either your values betray you and you're caught, or you lose yourself in the character and are corrupted and forever changed by the experience. Rust, unfortunately, experiences the latter. This is the danger of dark empathy. If you understand monsters too well, you risk becoming one of them. Rust is physically and psychologically damaged by his previous 4-year undercover experience. His time in the series has him go undercover once again, and once again, he's staring into the abyss. He puts on the act of a character he can slip into very easily because he has nihilistic detachment and high intelligence. It's at this point where you have to take a step back and ask the question, why is Rust even doing this? Thinking the way he thinks, why should he care at all? Here is the paradox of Rust Cohle. He believes nothing matters, yet he works harder than anyone else. He stays up all night investigating, going over documents. He's obsessed with cases for years, even when he's no longer on the job. Why? If nothing matters, why bother solving the case? This is the difference between passive nihilism, giving up, and active nihilism, creating your own code. Rust has stripped away everything: religion, family, reputation. All that's left is the job. Contrast this with Marty, who talks about being a good man. Rust just hunts. It's unclear if this was an active decision or something that just sort of happened. He was a detective with a family. That family was torn apart by the tragic death of his daughter. This affected Rust deeply, and while investigating a crime, he took illegal and extreme action on a drug user who also didn't take very good care of their kid, which is what sent him undercover for 4 years. He had to say yes and take a lot of steps there along the way, but I'm not sure if he ever sat himself down and said, all I have is the job now. Perhaps it doesn't matter. However morally gray, he is taking action consistently against wicked men, specifically against men who hurt children. This is what separates his moral character from Marty. Even without the job, Rust continues his investigation. This is not the actions of a nihilist, but of a truth or justice-obsessed individual. His behavior, the things he says, this is not his full truth. He goes far beyond the call of duty, but also doesn't seem to care too much about the duty part. It's in the end that Rust's journey takes a controversial turn.
Once there is only dark. Yes, any lights winning.
Rust is a man who spent years preaching that life is a meaningless misstep of nature. He lives and breathes this realistic and pessimistic point of view. And at the end of the series, and to the confusion of many, he closes out his sad, terribly bleak adventure with some of the worst experiences of human nature with a statement of optimism. It seems strange because the terrible men he ends up taking down should validate his pessimism. This shift to optimism is credited to his near-death experience. He felt the warmth and love of his deceased daughter, which allowed him to confront his grief, softening his detached and cold worldview. Ultimately, this change ends the season on a note of hope. Even those who are experienced in both the internal and external horrors of the world, those that stare deeply into the abyss and who are forever changed by it, in the end can still see the light. What's the lesson here?
We didn't get them all.
Yeah, and we ain't gonna get them all. That ain't what kind of world it is, but we got ours.
The series shows us that you cannot find the light by pretending the dark doesn't exist. Marty tried to ignore the darkness, and it rotted his life. So that's out. Rust dove headfirst into the darkness. He let it consume him. He let it strip away every illusion he had. And then, by going all the way to the bottom of the abyss, he found the one thing that was real. But that doesn't seem that great either. Perhaps it's a combination of both. You don't get to optimism by ignoring hard truths. And if darkness is thrust upon you, you need to not just survive, but survive with the right perspective. In the end, Rust teaches us that it's okay to look at the world and see a tragedy. But you can't stop there. You have to look at the tragedy, acknowledge the pain, and then, however you can, decide to light a candle anyway. You don't beat the abyss by looking away or ignoring it. You beat it by deciding where to point your light. If you're wired like Rust, you see cracks in everything. Your job isn't to fake positivity. Your job is to use that awareness as a weapon, but aim it at something worth fighting for. Thanks for watching.